Your manifestation already exists on the other side of a wall you've been trying to climb. Every strategy, every plan, every logical step you've mapped out assumes the wall is the problem. The wall was never the problem. By the end of this, you'll understand why the things you want most often arrive through doors you didn't know existed, and why your job was never to find the door. In quantum physics, there's a phenomenon that baffled scientists for decades. A particle approaches a barrier, a wall of energy it shouldn't be able to pass through. Classical physics says it stops. The math says it stops. Every measurable force says this particle lacks the energy to cross. And yet, when researchers observe the other side, the particle is already there. It didn't go over. It didn't go around. It passed straight through, as if the barrier existed for everything in the universe except that one particle in that one moment. They call it quantum tunneling, and it breaks every rule of how things are supposed to work at the visible level. Now hold that image while you think about the last time you tried to manifest something and spent weeks, maybe months, engineering the how. You mapped the route, you identified the obstacles, you built contingency plans for your contingency plans, and the thing either didn't come or it came through a channel so bizarre, so unrelated to your planning that you almost missed it. The job offer from someone you met at a gas station, the relationship that started because you took a wrong turn, the money that showed up from an inheritance you didn't know about. 3 days after you finally stopped obsessing over your bank account, that pattern keeps repeating because manifestation operates by the same principle as that particle. Your desire exists at a certain frequency. The fulfilled version of your wish exists at another point in consciousness. Between them sits what looks like an impenetrable wall. Your current circumstances, your logical mind's assessment of probability, the visible evidence that says this can't happen yet. Neville Goddard taught something that sounds absurd until you've lived it. The bridge of incidence. He said your only task is to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and then let reality rearrange itself. The bridge, the how, the route, the sequence of events builds itself. You don't design it, you walk it as it appears beneath your feet. Most people hear that and nod politely while continuing to micromanage every detail. Fair enough. The idea that you could stop controlling the path and still arrive at the destination feels reckless, irresponsible even. So why does it keep working for the people who actually do it? Think about what the particle does during quantum tunneling. It doesn't gather more energy, it doesn't train harder, it doesn't study the wall and find a crack. The particle's position becomes a probability wave, a spread of possible locations, and some of that probability exists on the other side of the barrier. The particle doesn't defeat the wall, it occupies a state where the wall is irrelevant. That's what living in the end does to your obstacles. When you genuinely assume the consciousness of the person who already has what you want, you stop vibrating at the frequency of the wall. You start resonating with the frequency of the other side. And reality, like that probability wave, begins to collapse around the version of events where you've already arrived. The hard part, you have to maintain that state while the wall is still visible. This is where most people quit. They do the mental work for 3 days, feel a shift, then check their bank account, or refresh their email, or ask the person if they've changed their mind. Every time you check, you're measuring the particle mid-tunnel, you're collapsing the wave function back to the side of the wall where you started. Observation in quantum mechanics and in consciousness determines the outcome. What you keep looking at is what keeps becoming solid. Neville described a man who needed a specific sum of money within a week. Every logical avenue was closed. The man did what Neville taught. He fell asleep each night in the feeling of having the money, touching it, counting it, feeling the relief. He didn't call banks. He didn't borrow. He didn't scheme. 4 days later, an old business partner contacted him about a forgotten debt from years earlier, the exact amount. The man had tumbled through. Critics within the spiritual community would say this is passive. Just sit around, imagining and wait for magic. That misses what's actually happening beneath the surface. Maintaining the assumption of the wish fulfilled is one of the most demanding disciplines in consciousness work. Your 5 senses are screaming contradictory evidence at you every waking hour. The old story plays on repeat. Fear visits at 2 in the morning, with spreadsheets and worst-case scenarios. Holding your inner state steady against all of that requires more strength than any external hustle ever could. The discipline is internal, and it's relentless. Abdullah, Neville's mentor, once slammed a door in his face. Neville had been saying he wanted to go to Barbados but kept talking about why he couldn't afford the trip. Abdullah told him, "You are in Barbados," and shut the door. The lesson was blunt. You can't occupy two states at once. You're either the person who has it or the person who wants it. The particle can't be on both sides of the wall simultaneously. It resolves to one location when observed. Your dominant assumption is the observation that collapses your reality into form. So what about the wall itself? Those obstacles that look so real? In quantum tunneling, the barrier doesn't disappear. It remains exactly where it was, exactly as solid as it ever was. For other particles, at other times, under other conditions, the wall is real. Your financial situation is real. The doctor's report is real. The distance between you and that person is real. The quantum metaphor doesn't ask you to pretend the wall is imaginary. It reveals something far more useful. The wall's solidity is relative to your state. A particle with the wrong energy gets reflected every time. The same wall, the same thickness, the same composition, reflected. Another particle, vibrating differently, passes through as if the wall were smoke. Same wall, different state, different outcome. You've experienced this in smaller ways already. A problem that consumed you for weeks suddenly resolved the day you genuinely let go of needing it to resolve. A door opened the moment you stopped pounding on it. You probably called it coincidence, or luck, or timing. The timing was your state shifting, and reality following. There's a subtlety here that goes deeper than positive thinking. Quantum tunneling has a probability attached to it. The thinner the barrier, the higher the probability of tunneling through. In consciousness terms, the thinner the barrier means how much resistance sits between your current state and your desired state. Every doubt is thickness. Every time you rehearse why it can't happen, you're adding another layer to the wall. Every time you return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you thin the barrier by a fraction. This is the mental diet Neville emphasized until his final lectures. What you feed your mind between the sessions of imagination is what determines the thickness of that wall. You can spend 20 minutes in a vivid scene of your fulfilled desire and then spend the remaining 23 hours and 40 minutes reinforcing the old story and wonder why nothing moves. The tunneling probability approaches zero when the barrier is thick enough. Your mental diet is the thickness of the wall. Watch your inner conversation for a single day. Actually watch it, you'll catch yourself rehearsing limitations you don't even believe in anymore, out of sheer habit. Those rehearsals are construction crews adding layers to the very barrier you're trying to tunnel through. Each revision of the old story, each "but what if it doesn't work," each "I'll believe it when I see it," is another inch of concrete between you and the version of reality you've been imagining. The quantum metaphor reveals one more thing that changes how you approach manifestation forever. The particle doesn't experience the tunnel. It doesn't feel the struggle of pushing through the wall. It exists on one side, and then it exists on the other. The transition happens in a space that can't be measured or observed. Scientists call it the classically forbidden region, a zone where by every known law, the particle shouldn't exist, yet it traverses. Your bridge of incidents occupies that same forbidden region. The sequence of events that brings your manifestation into form will look from the outside like it shouldn't have worked. People will call it lucky. They'll say you were in the right place at the right time. They'll search for a logical explanation and come up empty, because the logic belongs to the wall, and you stopped operating by the wall's rules the moment you shifted your state. The practice is deceptively simple. Tonight, as you fall asleep, construct a scene that implies your desire is fulfilled. Make it sensory. Feel the handshake, hear the congratulations, touch the keys to the new home, see the number in the account, loop it until it feels natural, until the feeling of having it is more real than the feeling of wanting it. Then, and this is where the real work begins, carry that feeling into tomorrow. When the old thoughts come, and they will, revise them. Mid-sentence if you have to. Catch the inner conversation that reinforces the wall and redirect it toward the state you chose. You are the particle. Your imagination is your frequency. The wall between you and everything you've been reaching for has always been penetrable, for the version of you willing to occupy the other side before the evidence arrives. Stop climbing. Start tunneling.